Hello. I hope people are in here. Happy Monday. I was gonna say, if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. It's just Jazmen Jafar. I was gonna make a video. I was gonna hopefully have another video posted by today, but I had a little bit of a cold, some other stuff, so I'm actually gonna record that video tomorrow and then hopefully have it up in the next couple of days. And that first video is gonna be my full story, my full journey into online sex work and OnlyFans, coming from a background that is very unusual for this kind of industry. And I definitely want to talk about that. And there's going to be a bunch of other stuff I'm going to do. I'm actually going to do a bra try on because I just ordered a bunch of bras. And as long as I don't break any rules, I know I can do those on YouTube. So whether you're in it for the talking and the and the intellectual side of it, or you're into it just because you think I'm hot, or both, that'll be the place to go. And probably if you're here listening to this, it'll be a little bit of both. But so today I'm actually really excited about this topic. I want to talk about why people believe in conspiracy theories and kind of the psychology behind conspiracy theories. So what kind of made me want to do this topic is, if you're not following me on my Instagram, I posted a reel on my Instagram, and it was a joke. It wasn't even something that actually happened, but it's a situation that I've heard happen. I don't really go on dates, probably why it hasn't happened, but it was like a little reel. It used to be a TikTok, and I remember on TikTok it got a lot of controversy, and then I posted it on my Instagram, and it got some controversy too, where I said, when you're on a first date and when your first date is going well and he starts talking about government microchips or whatever, and both on TikTok and here and on Instagram, more so on TikTok, because as we have established, TikTok has the lower ranks of society more so than other platforms. But people were like, oh no, like it's just intelligence, intelligence. And there was one comment in particular that I'm going to read to you guys and my response to it. Okay. So if you haven't seen it, it's literally just me, and then that's the caption. So just me pretending to be like annoyed by that. But yeah, then people were like, oh my gosh, like, don't you think like the world is being controlled, et cetera, et cetera? That's mild compared to what the government has actually done. And I'm like, I'm not saying the government has never done anything. I'm just a supporter of developing critical thinking skills and realizing claims need to be backed by sufficient evidence. And this person responded, there's 4 companies that control the information in this country that lobbies the government to get their way. You don't think there's a bias in information being hidden from us? The JFK files, that's a very common conspiracy theory. The JFK files were released 4 years ago, and the files were released 4 years late with 75% redacted, blah, blah, blah. Who's hiding the information? Why are they hiding the information? Was blah, blah, like just all these questions. And I responded, so one, bunch of logical fallacies, and then we're going to talk about some of those today. But I'm like, even if we grant that the government hides information from us, all you brought forth is questions. All I'm saying is that you cannot fill, when there's a question, there's a gap of knowledge, and what you use to fill that gap of knowledge needs to be backed by evidence. I can't just come out and make a YouTube video. I can. And say that it was just this big scary dragon from King's Landing and Game of Thrones that was the real shooter, based on no evidence, because in that case anything can fill the gap. And just conspiracy, and that just got me really thinking about conspiracy theories. I think in recent years, particularly with COVID and Donald Trump, it's a conspiracy we're not married, and it is. But with COVID and Donald Trump and all that, I feel like there's been more of an emphasis on conspiracy theories. I didn't find any research on conspiracy theories necessarily being on the rise with that kind of stuff, but there is consistent evidence that conspiracy theories are more prevalent in times of despair, which makes sense, right? When things are going wrong with COVID, with like a controversial president like Donald Trump, the conspiracy theories and the amount of people that believe them or feel comfort in them increases. So took some notes. I really like this topic because you know me, and it kind of ties into Kanye's pushing the conspiracy theory. Kanye is very sick and I wish him well. Do you think COVID was the government? No, I don't. So I want to talk about all this stuff, and we can talk about specific conspiracy theories if you want, but I'm kind of looking at conspiracy theories as a whole. Conspiracy theories are not new. It didn't come about with the onset of COVID, right? They've been here far before that, back to witches burning, the Red Scare. Illuminati was a big one when I was like in high school, and I always was like, what the fuck is this? That was a big one. So they've always been around. And some people think the internet has increased or made the problem worse. I don't necessarily think that's true, right? It's kind of like on one hand, the internet gives you a tool to be able to debunk a lot of conspiracy theories and gives you access to information and facts at the tip of your fingertips that we've never had before. So on one hand, there's that, but on another hand, it also gives rise to the ability to spread misinformation and for people to really lock into their confirmation bias and believe. It's just so funny to me when people think they like unlocked some crazy thing because they watched a YouTube video. Like it is funny. Most conspiracy theories don't answer two major questions. Why would this action be beneficial for the actor? So the actor thing we're going to talk about, and how many people would it take to pull off the conspiracy, and how likely it would be for that to be kept quiet. So yeah, and there is also, the crazier the conspiracy theory, obviously the less likely, the more actors are involved in the conspiracy, or the more far-reaching a conspiracy theory, the less likely, and the more actors involved in the conspiracy theory also makes it less likely. Hey. Social media is like force feeding intelligence. I don't know. I'm not somebody that hates or loves social media. I think social media can be good or bad, like so many other things. It's complex, and that's one of the factors we're going to talk about on what makes people, like what factors or what traits people have that can make them more likely to believe in conspiracy theories. So, first of all, conspiracy theories, why are they there? Why do people believe in them? They're highly adaptive. So the scientist, what is his name? Michio Kaku? You know what I'm talking about? I think he's a theoretical physicist. I was listening to him, and he's talking about how human beings, we have this superstition gene. We have this paranoia gene in us, and that it was adaptive to us because, you know, back in the day, maybe 9 times out of 10, it didn't do anything. It was wrong. But one of those times, it could have saved your life. So that's why we still have it. And it paranoia and over cautiousness served us back when we were in deep survival mode. Not so much today, but we've talked about this before. This kind of episode really ties into some previous episodes where we talked about evolution and fear, and how certain fears were rational before, but now they're irrational, but evolution has not caught up. It's a very slow process. And I think this is definitely one of those things. So it's kind of hardwired in us. Unlike science. Science is not. The scientific method has to be tested. It's reproducible, testable. These are things that do not, you know, align with our primitive nature, right? It's definitely a process that doesn't align with our intuition a lot of the time, whereas paranoia, superstition, conspiracy theories do have an evolutionary link. True. Yo, hello. I'm glad a lot more of you are here now. So we're talking about conspiracy theories and why people believe in conspiracy theories. And there's actually, like us finding patterns in random shit is also very common. The word for it, I think I wrote it down. The word for it is apophenia. I think that's how you say it, which is the tendency to perceive a meaningful connection in random situations. So there's a lot of different forms of this. Pareidolia, that's when you like, when you look up at the clouds, it's very natural. As human beings, we're like, oh, there's Donald Duck. Oh, there's Mickey Mouse. Oh, there's something, right? We're hardwired to constantly see patterns and connections in things that are actually just random. But that's how we're wired. So that's one example, like seeing a face on a tree, seeing, you guys all know, like you're like, oh, we all do it. Clustering is another thing we do where we've tried to find a pattern in a random sequence. So, and then people always take that relief. Oh my gosh, I always look at the time when it's 11:11. Or if I give you some code XXZ24378, you're going to be like, oh my God, like you will find a pattern in something that's probably random. And there's I think it's called the Ramsey theory. It's actually a mathematical theory that the larger something is, the more you'll be able to find patterns in it just by default, right? If you put up like 800 books and you open all the pages to these 800 books, you are going to be able, there's just so much material there that you are going to be able to spot patterns or make something out of nothing because you have so much to work with. I think that's called the Ramsey theory. I'm going to look that up really quick just to make sure. Yes, the mathematical study in which a certain degree of order must occur as the scale of the object becomes large. So that's kind of what I'm talking about there. There's also the gambler's fallacy, which I'm sure most of you have heard of. It's basically believing that because something just happened or that something has happened often, that it's less likely to happen now. So like, right, we flip a coin, heads or tails. And if you got tails 3 times, you're going to think that you're more likely now to get, so if you got tails 3 times, you're going to think that you're more likely to get heads now because you got tails 3 times. When really the chance is still 50-50. It doesn't matter what happened 2 seconds ago. Let me look at the comments really quick. Kind of people think that control society. Sorry, I like read in my head and then my moderator doesn't know which comment to put up. I guess the biggest one, if the influence, and it's, I don't know what you're talking about with that. The comment, I agree with the social. Okay, I don't want to talk about specific. Oh, you're not talking about a specific one. Okay, it's far more comforting than people who control society to that degree versus accept. Yes, okay, we're going to talk about this bigger concept. But Terry Squaris Rex 2, I'm like kind of skipping through your comments because you're kind of all over the place. You're like curvy queen, and then you're like, oh, let me actually address what you're saying. Jazz, like, which is cool. Keep flooding the comments, but that's why I don't know when you're trolling or when you're being serious. There's also the proportionality bias, right? So a lot of people think that the bigger the event, the more likely that it couldn't have just been something simple. So like the example that I've heard a lot is like, let's say the president dies of a cold. Let's say like Joe Biden dies of a cold tomorrow. Because it's Joe Biden, people are going to think, oh no, maybe he was murdered. Maybe it was this, maybe he was that, maybe it was this, that, blah, 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 blah. When really a 80-year-old man dying of a cold is something that does happen. But people are like, no, because it's the president, because it's something so big, it must have some, there must be some big cause, right? Because the consequence is so large, that means that the act, like they're, cause and effect, the cause must have been something very, it couldn't be something so simple. So that's the proportionality bias, thinking that the more significant an event is, that there must be more behind the story, more behind the scenes. Oh, the president just dies of a cold. What's the likelihood that the president, with all their you know what I'm talking about. These are how conspiracy theorists talk. Yeah, those are all logical fallacies. Example, population reduction. All the elites are promoting things towards the goal of yes. So this is a big theme in conspiracy theories is the nefarious agent, right? And like when we talk about this stuff, so why I said it relates to a lot of stuff we talked about before, being afraid of the unknown, wanting order in the chaos, wanting answers that we don't have, right? And wanting something, okay, instead of being like, this is a very complex situation, blah, blah, blah. No, now it's simple. There's just these evil agents that are, the government or whoever, that are just there like, ha, 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 trying to like destroy everybody, right? That gives you an answer, and that puts the blame on a specific person, and you're like, okay, it's just or a specific agency, organization, and you go, okay, there we go, they're the evil actors, and now you think that you have figured out the answer and that you can rise above it, because it's like, okay, this isn't complex, there aren't a lot of factors here, it's just those are the bad guys, we're the good guys, right? Sterilizing kids, yeah, there's a lot. We could go on and on and on about all the conspiracy theories. If you guys want to help that, I mean, if you guys want to do that, we can do that at the end. Why did I read? Oh, it's because right under it says Bill Gates doesn't help things with his act. I was like, why did I say help? Because I was reading the comment under. So yeah, comfort, that's a big reason people believe in, I mean, if you guys have been in my previous streams, that's a big reason people believe in anything without evidence. Religion, God, intelligent design, crystals, astrology. People want order in the chaos. That's what they want. They want answers. So they will turn to things that don't have any evidence behind it for answers. And anytime there's lack of evidence, they see it as proof of a conspiracy. Oh, there's something that, information is redacted. Why? Right? When there's, a bunch of explanations. No. This is proof for my conspiracy theory. People, that ties into some of the logical fallacies we've talked about. Okay, sorry. I'm trying to scan the comments and also look at what I'm trying to say. So what are some factors that may lead some people to be more likely to believe in conspiracy theories as opposed to others? So research has found, this isn't me trying to be an asshole, I swear, that education, the less educated you are, this has been replicated through multiple studies, the more likely you are to believe in conspiracy theories. I'm not saying this is due to a lack of intelligence, but some reasons for this may be that people that don't have an education can't discern which sources are credible, what's a credible source and what's not a credible source, right? A meme on Facebook to them is credible versus all of us, you guys know, when we were in school, we couldn't link to Wikipedia. We could go to Wikipedia, get like a little understanding, but then we had to get valid sources for our facts. And people who didn't go to school or, go through that process, me as a lawyer, we had to learn the rules of evidence. We had to learn how a criminal case or a civil case works, that this is what is needed to prove something happened. And so we are less likely to believe in conspiracy theories because we don't believe things based on no evidence. That's not what we're trained to do. We're trained to know what it takes to prove a claim against somebody or anything, right? So the less educated you are, studies have found, you're the more likely you are to fall into this trap. Again, I'm not trying to be like, you're not smart. No, I think it's some of the other things that education teaches you, like a byproduct of education. The more educated someone is, the less the loser and less to look conspiracy against them. You guys are jumping the gun, which I like. You guys are smart because I'm about to talk about that. So yeah, they're like hunches, coincidences, all of this are stuff that you learn, especially when you go through law school. You can't be, what a coincidence. Like, these are not things that prove anything other than the fact that there is a coincidence. Memes and social media posts are not stuff that we look to as credible. The more educated you are, the less likely you're going to see that as a credible source. People that feel powerlessness, there's also has been replicated across multiple studies. The more powerless and disillusioned people feel, feel this ties in both to the education aspect, I think, on one hand, because subjective social class and the feeling of powerlessness in the world is going to make you more likely to maybe want to believe some of this stuff. And the people that feel powerless are going to be more likely to want to find meaning in everything. So this has been replicated in a lot of studies. So one in particular found that lacking control in a situation increased a person's likelihood to perceive non-existent patterns, including developing superstitions and believing in conspiracies. They've also replicated this in other studies where induced feelings of uncertainty will increase the likelihood of believing in conspiracy theories. So the more you feel powerless in the world, the more you feel like, the more disillusioned, disenfranchised you feel, the more you're likely to believe in a narrative that doesn't actually make sense. So I know we talk about this a lot, but tying this back to the incels, right? They feel like the most powerless losers in the world. So they come up with this narrative. And I'm sure some of them are actually, you can tell some of them aren't stupid, right? They can articulate points there, but they believe this because it gives them an answer. Oh, the reason I'm like this because women are evil, because women are only looking for blah, blah, blah. It's all external. These factors that women only want men that are 6 feet tall and blah, 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 even though there's evidence to the contrary. And that's not the only reason, but you feel powerless and you're looking for answers. And they have their own language. They have their own everything. They have their own religion almost, it seems, when you go really deep into it. And they're likely to believe in it because it gives them that comfort. Okay. And this is another thing that may tie into the education. Cognitive complexity, like I said, the more educated you are, maybe the more likely. These are all theories. So the education part is proven, but why is these are some things that people think about. Cognitive, and then also the feeling of powerlessness has been also replicated in studies. But cognitive complexity, people who are educated are more likely to be able to process be able to process complex, that the world is complex, right? Okay, X happened. There could be a bunch of reasons why this happened. This could happen for this reason or that reason. People that want a simple solution, evil actor, government, evil actor, blah, blah, blah. They want to kill us. They're all sitting in their evil lair. That's a much more simple answer than, oh, okay, let's look at this through a lens, and one, maybe not know the answer, and two, maybe be able to look at it from various angles and acknowledge that this is a complex situation and there's a lot of factors involved here. These people are more likely to not like that, maybe because of some of the other things we said. They don't want the uncertainty, but they also want it to be all back to that evil agent. Conspiracy can be considered a serious psychiatric disorder. I don't know about that. I would have to look into that. So yeah, a agent is a real target too, so it's easier for action. It's something that can give these people a purpose, especially when they don't feel like they have one in the world. Preliminary. Okay, so now there's also social reasons. So preliminary research also suggests that belief in conspiracy theories is linked to people's need for uniqueness. The higher the need to feel special and unique, the more likely a person to believe conspiracy theory. How many guys do you know, or women, but I feel like I know these guys, for me, my anecdotal experience, that aren't very educated, aren't doing much in life, but they think they are so smart and they're like sitting in their basements listening to Alex Jones or whatever, and thinking that they have now this extra knowledge, this extra ability to find patterns where the rest of us are idiots. We're all sheep, but they are free thinkers. I think Kanye, maybe someone brought up Kanye is a good example of this. I'm a billionaire. I'm so special. I'm a free thinker. Nobody else is like me. I'm a revolutionary. And him believing things that are controversial or saying things that are controversial fuels that I'm so just a free thinker, right? I think people that have a predisposition to paranoia can also speak conspiracies where none exist. Yes. So that is 100% true too. People that have, in his case, it's clinically accurate to say, mental disorder, like bipolar, anything that can lead to increased paranoia are obviously going to be more likely. I think that's more obvious. I was trying to link or list some things that maybe people don't see as super obvious. Right? People who believe in conspiracy theories think they're smarter usually than the rest of us, when research shows that at least when it comes to education levels, it's not the case, right? You don't go into a Harvard law or Harvard medical school classroom and see a bunch of people who think there are microchips in the vaccine. It's just not what happens. But if you go to, like, you know, some impoverished area with a bunch of, you know, people that don't have high school diplomas, that are online, they can't spell, and everything is not sourced properly, those are people that are like, yeah, the government's out to get us. They're seeking answers that they didn't get from an education system that they struggle through. I think that's definitely an interesting take. I mean, seeking answers in general is common, but I think it's more common for them. There's the education one. I was actually reading a paper on that, and that was one thing that they mentioned, is that we, or those of us that are more educated, we know we have the ability, like we're okay with the unknown because we know we can take care of ourselves. We have that status. We have the means to take care of ourselves and our family. So you know what? If we don't know if you know something's redacted from something, or we don't know all of the potential effects in 10 years of this COVID, we're like, okay, you know, they're like, oh my God, no, there must be reason to the, like, the 5G, they're trying to kill us. Everyone's trying to kill us. You know, they're more in that mindset than people that are doing well, I think. So yeah, people that are, another thing that will make somebody more likely is people that are just more prone to this kind of magical thinking over rational thinking. So people that are more prone to this kind of irrational, intuitive almost. I know we talked about intuition and how important it is to trust it, but I did say you got to bring conscious reasoning into the mix, and that is when you got to use that to check your intuition. So there's some people that just will reject, they want an unobservable force to be kind of behind things, and they will sometimes even reject a force that is and so some questions that I was listening to a podcast about this on Big Brains, I think, and some questions, and I've heard some of these before, and I realized I am like 100% a rational thinker. Like the way I'm wired is to go 100% rational. But it was funny because I was asking like my sister questions like this, and my mom is more likely to go into like the more magical thinking realm. But like some questions, and you see this, like, you know, with like, and I remember even during the podcast, you know, he was talking about like his son, and his son is like, no, there's monsters in my room. There's monsters in my room. And he keeps going and he keeps checking, and he's like, there are no monsters here. And then one day his son turns around and he's like, well, if there are no monsters here, then why am I afraid? And he's like, that's a good question, right? So it is something that is innate in us. So it's not, you know, you're not crazy necessarily. Sorry, I'm getting a private chat for my, actually, let's do a quick ad break. It's my first time doing an ad break. And so if you guys can just stay and watch this quick ad, and then I'm going to go through these questions, and I'm interested in knowing what you guys would think, or how you guys would answer these questions for yourself, because these are some questions you can think about, to think like, how rational am I, and how like superstitious am I? So let's do the ad break, and it's like going to be a really quick ad. So cut. I don't know how to do it, so my moderator has to do it. Is it happening? My dad printed off some papers about how microchips are small enough to be in needles, and dropped them in my room. Oh, my mom reads like the bottom of teacups at Persian parties. So yeah. It says disabled. Okay, so I guess we don't know how to run the ad, so it doesn't matter. So actually, I'm gonna go right into this. But first I'm gonna read. So yeah, I was just responding to David Jait's comment about his dad printing off papers about how microchips are small enough to be in needles and dropped them off in my room one day. So actually my mom is far more magical than my dad is. My dad is actually very rational. So my mom is definitely the one that like believes in like psychics and all of that. But some questions. So this is one like I've heard a lot, like people have this like, would you wear a shirt that obviously has been washed that Jeffrey Dahmer wore or Charles Manson wore? A lot of us get this like feeling of like, no, I don't want to wear a shirt that was worn by Jeffrey Dahmer, even though it's completely clean now. But we kind of have this feel, oh no, was like, it's kind of like that's going to rub off on us. So like a question is like, okay, would you rather wear a shirt worn by Jeffrey Dahmer or would you rather lick a nickel? There are a lot of people who would say, I would rather lick a nickel off the ground than wear that shirt, even though that is not rational by any means. It's a piece of cloth. It doesn't mean anything. And my brain automatically is like, oh yeah, I'd rather wear that shirt. I don't care. I'll wear a shirt worn by Jeffrey Dahmer. It's a fucking shirt. It didn't like rub off the serial killer gene in the shirt. And now the serial killer is going to rub off on me. But we think that way. A lot of us do think that way. Or would you rather stab a photo of a beloved family member 80 times or like, you know, put your hand in a bowl of spiders or something? It's a piece of paper, right? Like you're not stabbing the family member, you're stabbing a photo of the family member, but you feel like, oh no, I'm like disrespecting or that's superstition overruling that rationality. That's what we're talking about here. So people that are more likely to pick like, oh no, I'd rather like eat a dirty nickel or lick a dirty nickel. Or I'd rather put my hand in a bowl of spiders rather than stab a piece of paper, because to them, they're looking, no, that piece of paper is my dead grandmother's picture or whatever. And you feel it's like people that are more in tune with feelings over what's actually happening. Another common one, would you rather stay in a luxurious hotel for the night, but a family was murdered in that room like a few years ago, brutally? Or would you rather stay in like a Motel 6 that's like very unsanitary for a night over that? So some people, like my mom, would be like, oh my God, no, people were murdered here. I can't stay here. Like she would, even though that makes no fucking sense. Like when you think about it, somebody being like, there's no, right? And a lot of horror, the whole horror genre really plays on this for people, right? Oh my gosh, I'm in this house. There's somebody died in here. And then the ghosts come out, right? It's something that a lot of people feel. I am 100%, and a lot of people fall somewhere in the middle. Most people fall somewhere in the middle. I think I fall more towards the rational side because I've had that happen before. People are like, oh my God, we can't stay. Oh my God, like this is the third. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like I don't even have time for that bullshit. But I know some people are like that. And that doesn't mean that, you know, I'm better than them. But these are just some factors. I've seen my friends actively look up conspiracies about the Travis Scott Astroworld show being a demonic sacrifice, and that was hard getting them to discuss the odds of that being a reality versus an event with poor planning. And yeah, like I said, there are things that will lead people to be more likely to believe in conspiracy theories, and I was trying to talk about some of them. How debunking conspiracy theories for people that really believe in them is very difficult to do. Kind of getting ahead of it is a way to do it, but it's very hard to get ahead of it and reach these people who are constantly, usually also deeply embedded in their confirmation bias. I think I was reading a study where uncertainty definitely leads to the belief of conspiracy theories when it comes to politics, but only for the side against you. You're going to believe those. When it comes to your own political party, you're not going to believe those. So kind of this whole playing for a team confirmation bias is obviously heavily present. And then I do want to say that it's not like none of them have ever, you know, it's not us sitting here like every conspiracy theory is garbage. There have been ones, Watergate, you know, that have been real. And also, this isn't also to say that people don't have sometimes good reasons for mistrusting, for instance, when we talk about the vaccine, you know, it's common knowledge, I think, that like the Black population in the United States is more reluctant to trust in vaccines, but they have a history where they were heavily mistreated by the scientific world and healthcare professionals. So sometimes there is actually reasons and legitimate reasons, at least somewhere in, why they believe the way they believe. But then the thing is, sometimes the leap goes too far, right? You start with something, okay, kind of like I said, there are questions. What happened here? We don't have all the answers. So now that there's this gap of information, you're supposed to fill it with something with evidence. Otherwise, it's a free-for-all. And that's what we see with conspiracy. Oh, it's 5G, radio frequency. They're trying to kill us, government microchips. Everything that you can possibly think of under the sun will come in to fill that gap if you do not require any evidence to fill that gap. I'm curious to hear diverse narratives, but my conclusion will always, yeah, I like hearing narratives too, because I'm interested in the way people think and how people believe what they believe. And I've seen so many instances of it. They're not even bad people. Sometimes they're just kind of I had a girl, she was doing my massage. She was my regular girl was out, and she just was sitting there trying to tell me that, there's no shootings, and kind of what Alex Jones, they're all actors and stuff. And you could just tell she's very sweet, but she's just not a very rational person. And believing that there's good and evil, and anytime evil happens, it's because of evil people, and it can't really be real. And then the good is all the innocent people that are, oblivious of the evil, is something that I see a lot. So yeah, also a good thing with conspiracy theories is look at the conspiracy theories you believe and see if they're the ones you want to believe. I feel this is just such common sense. And I've talked about this when it comes to religion too, and the perception of heaven, and heaven being this beautiful, perfect place. If it wasn't, you would be less likely to believe in it. So it's kind of the more you want to believe in something, the more you should definitely check that belief. The more a belief is appealing to you, the more a belief brings you comfort, the more a belief makes you feel special or important, or any of these things, any belief that induces positive feelings in you should be the ones you should be most skeptical of. And obviously, with my whole thing on on conspiracy theories, is not to say you shouldn't be skeptical. I am all for skepticism. That's why I created this whole podcast, is questioning, being skeptical of some of these narratives and social norms and ideas that have been fed to us for so long. Well, where did they come from? Asking those questions and realizing sometimes those questions don't have answers, but still going through that process. That's how you develop critical thinking skills. But I think what happens with conspiracy theories is they doubt, and then they come up with some crazy shit, and they okay, well, and that process from the doubt to the crazy shit, or to the belief in things right without evidence. So a lot of them will jump to, oh, why do you guys think COVID, blah, blah, blah. We don't have evidence that the COVID vaccine really is blah, blah, blah against COVID. But then they believe that it's a government hoax with no evidence. Right? They think that because there's not evidence for the 100% efficacy of a vaccine, that is evidence for there being a conspiracy theory, or that is evidence on its own for being for whatever thing that they're talking about that has absolutely no evidence. This is also the perfectionist fallacy we talked about, that if something isn't proven to 100%, that now all theories are equal. Right. So people are well, the vaccines aren't 100% safe because whatever percent of the population can have a negative reaction to it. Therefore, vaccines are bullshit now. It doesn't matter that there's a lot of scientific evidence behind it, because it's not 100%. It's only 99% or whatever percent. So now any theory we come up with for vaccines is valid because they don't have 100% accuracy in what they're saying, even though the rest of what they're saying is actually backed by evidence. And what you're saying is backed by nothing because they don't have 100%. Now you're saying it's all equal. It's all free for all. So interesting stuff. It's like, okay, let me scroll up on the comments because that was kind of everything I wanted to talk about. I did want to also try to go into ways that we can, how can we help people that are like this? And in a sense, you kind of can't, they're always going to be there, but maybe in your normal life, etc. What I was saying earlier is if you can sometimes, like, I think if we can get as much information out as possible, like, you know, if there's a vaccine out, we could say, okay, it can cause this before, because what happens is if you don't say that, or if it's not common knowledge, and then later somebody finds it, like, oh my God, they didn't tell us this. They didn't tell us. And so that will be like, you know, that'll create that distrust, that'll create fuel for magical thinking. But I didn't get a chance to really go do that research, but if you guys want to talk about it or your experiences, we can. All right. It's like how most people are uncertain or afraid of death, but not everyone turns to religion to help overcome their fear. Yeah, exactly. So a lot of what we talk about today, I said, relates to fear of the unknown, fear in general. People will do anything for comfort. Your brain tries to avoid pain and anxiety, and uncertainty is the greatest form of anxiety. It's anxiety inducing. Why are we all here? Oh shit. Why are we all here? Oh shit. Why is this happening to us? Why do I have to stay inside? Why is this happening? Blah, 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 blah. And then you're going to want to fill it with something, right? Same with religion. Oh my God. Why are we all, oh, okay. Big man in the sky. Cool. Whew. Now I can relax because the world has order. People want order in the chaos, and they will look for things. We are hardwired to look for patterns in random things where there aren't patterns, but you are wired to do that. And if you don't put rational thinking, if you don't try to combat that with understanding the importance of the scientific method and the superiority of the scientific method over feelings and intuition and woo-woo stuff, you are going to obviously fall down this rabbit hole. Conspiracy might be an answer to modernity when rational doesn't allow mythology to be the answer anymore. Yeah. Answer to modernity. What do you mean by that, though? But yeah, when rational thinking obviously makes people do not want to give away their beliefs. So like I've heard that when it comes to things like psychics or card reading or astrology, it takes people, I think on average, a few years being repeatedly confronted with evidence against it until they believe it, because they're so hooked on it. It's like giving away your favorite stuffy when you were a kid. No, I don't want to give it away, right? That security blanket, your comfort zone. So it's definitely not easy, and people are going to be very hostile towards information that threatens their comfort, right? That's why so many people hate atheists. Like I said, there was a poll a long time ago that most Americans would rather have a convicted rapist as president than an atheist. People are just like, oh my God, how can, right? To this day, we can't even have probably a successful candidate running for president that can openly say, I don't believe in God. That makes people upset. That makes, oh my gosh, like, you know, because it threatens something that's so integral to themselves, right? Some people may be like, okay, you know, they don't believe in my exact religion, but they still believe in an answer. This person doesn't believe in any answer. Oh my gosh. Like, you know, that's very uncomfortable for people. The only one I believe is the Gucci Mane clone. I don't even know that one. Not Cardi is a clone too. Conspiracy is an accusation. Take the recent. It's an accusation. I guess it's an accusation when your conspiracy theory is accusing an entity or a group or these like secret evil agents of like with their hoods on, like behind the scenes, like trying to kill all of us. Population control. We have the cure to cancer. They're just not giving it to us, right? That helps explain why people are dying of cancer. It's like, no. There's the evil guys in the top that are controlling everything. They're responsible for this. So, it's not just happening. Cancer isn't complex. Disease isn't complex. People have the answers. They're just hiding it from us, right? I've tried to live by whenever a claim seems incredible, whether you agree with it or not, you should always be skeptical and look into more. Yeah, so comment, I forgot what it's actually called. But it's a philosophical, it's a common philosophy, I guess, theory, whatever, that it's not Pascal's wager. Oh my God, it's going to bother me. It's not Occam's razor. Occam's razor is that the simplest explanation is more likely. There's whatever one it is where it's like the more extraordinary the claim, the more extraordinary the evidence. Very common. I mean, that's just math. That's just mathematically accurate, right? The more crazy or the more unlikely your claim is, the more evidence you need for it. So that's kind of like the whole contradiction when it comes to God. Is it's the biggest claim of all and it has absolutely no evidence. It has the least, but so many people believe in it because those other factors and those other drives and our primitive brains are so much more powerful sometimes than our logic. What about covert intelligence, which is making conspiracy a profession? Do you have a conspiracy that you know isn't rational but can't help but believe? No, but I told you I'm heavily. There are things I don't know about. Like when people are like, "Do you believe in aliens?" I'm like, okay, well, I would have to look at the research. I haven't. I don't care. It's not like interesting to me like it is to so many people. Whether they're like, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's plausible that there's life on other planets, but I would need to see what we know about it before I can say I do or I don't believe in something because my magical brain is like, oh yeah, for sure, But right, so the more detail you add to something with no evidence, then the more. So right, is there life outside of human or other planets? Okay, that's a very broad claim. That could happen, when someone's like, is there life on other planets that are controlling us and we're in a video game and they are blue, and now it's all of these extra claims that make it less likely. There was like a famous debate between, was it Cenk Uygur and Harris? I talk about Harris a lot only because Hazard Stint knows we're doing his waking up meditation shit together. And so he always pops up on my thing, but where Cenk's position was, well, no, all the religions are equally false. And Sam Harris is like, no, how probability works is if you think Jesus is coming back, that's one level of unlikely. But if you believe Jesus is coming back to Missouri, like the Mormons or whoever believes that, I don't know, then that is more unlikely because there's one element, like Jesus coming back, that on its own is unlikely. Jesus coming back to a specific spot is more unlikely, if that makes sense. So that was something they were going by. They're like, and then he's like, no, because it's all so. Interesting. Isn't the conspiracy that they're hiding it from the public like Men in Black? I don't know what you're talking about, but thank you for your engagement. All right, guys, anything else you guys want to talk about? Go follow my YouTube if you haven't. I'm probably gonna end up doing actual short condensed videos kind of talking about a lot of the topics I've talked about on this channel on those, but like conspiracy theory is going to be way down the line. That's not in my top like 10 videos to make, but if you're interested in this stuff, go to my YouTube because that's where a lot of it's going to be. I will still be doing these every Monday for the time being. So if you guys have topics or, you know, anything you want me to discuss or something you think is interesting, let me know. Next week is Halloween. I'll still be streaming because I'm 27. I'm going to be trick-or-treating. So you think conspiracy being subjective can be used to split society? Who's using it? Who is this? Who is this? Like, I don't know. Your comments are kind of like scattered to me, so I don't really understand what you're saying a lot of the time. But yeah, so next week will be Halloween. I was thinking somebody brought up like maybe do something like Halloween themed, but like I don't know if there's any, if you guys can think of like a Halloween themed or maybe spooky themed topic, let me know. But that might not, I might just do something normal because I'm not gonna rack my brain to try to think about. And then the other option was to wear a costume, but I'm like sitting like this, so I don't know about that. Like a conspiracy can be seen differently from a female's perspective on the subject of abortion, for example. So people's worldview and experiences, and their subjective experiences obviously affect what they think and how they interact with the world. So I think that's obvious. I do remember seeing that there's actually there hasn't been any research that have found gender differences in the likelihood of believing in conspiracy theories. But I don't mind a good conspiracy theory, but it's worrisome when people believe things like Sandy Hook was staged and the parents of the victims are subsequently harassed. Yes. So we've seen what's been going on with Alex Jones. I don't mind, like, if people want to sit in a corner and like believe that the Illuminati is doing it, fine. But I think that it's obviously having, or it can have, and it has had. I mean, look at even vaccines. The anti-vaxxers are bringing back diseases that we've gotten rid of because they won't vax their kids and they won't get vaxxed. I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about just fucking stuff that we thought was done and in the past, and now, you know, here it is. Or people who during COVID didn't believe, they thought it was some hoax, it wasn't really happening, and weren't washing their hands or weren't taking any extra precautions. That makes it worse for everybody. So I think the issue with some conspiracy theories is, yeah, the harm to others. So in that's a very targeted group of people that is receiving a lot of harm. Can you imagine losing your children and being on TV crying, like the worst moment of your life being filmed, and somebody just like has a large following that's just sitting around saying that you're an actor? Like, disturbing, disgusting. So, you know, there's a lot of conspiracy theories that I think conspiracy theories in general don't take us in a good direction as a society. And the problem is that, yeah, they can spin off into harm. Let me look at January 6th. Look at the election being stolen. These kind of conspiracy theories can have real life consequences. So combating the thinking behind a conspiracy theory is kind of what I'm getting at, versus looking at which conspiracy theory is most harmful or not harmful. They're going to be around anyway, but if we can kind of teach people to think critically, use critical thinking to force people to have evidence and to learn about the scientific method, to get an education, kind of what we talked about, these things I think can be combated. Whether the conspiracy theory is not harmful or harmful, because it's when people think like that, it's going to be very hard to be like, okay, those ones are fine, these ones aren't fine. I mean, people can think whatever they want. I'm not somebody that's sitting here like, oh, and I do not believe, if you guys do not know this about me, I wouldn't say I'm a free speech absolutist, because like I don't believe in direct threats of violence, or, you know, I mean, going through law school and actually doing a full class just on the First Amendment and free speech, before that I was like, oh yeah, whatever. But now I'm like, okay, there has to be some, but the limits that I would put on free speech are very minimal. I am very much for free speech in the marketplace of ideas. So I'm not by any means saying these people should be censored. I am by no means saying that Twitter or Facebook or anybody should be kicking people off platforms because of misinformation. But at the same time, how do we combat misinformation without censorship? I think discussions like this. Halloween themed discussion, the mass panic revolving around the Salem witch trials or other similar public events. I guess if you guys are interested in that, let me know. If you guys want like specific, that's kind of related to today. So we could talk about stuff like that. Didn't Hitler successfully use conspiracy theories about the Jewish people to justify genocide? Yeah. We have Mr. Kanye, whatever. I mean, he's not trying to justify genocide, but he doesn't, when people don't understand, he's like, doesn't understand why this is a problem, why this is harmful. Well, that's why it's harmful. I'm not somebody that jumps to Hitler for everything. I'm not one of those people, but when you have the Jews are a common target, they run the world, they're the evil actors in a lot of conspiracy theories. It's can be very harmful, as our history has shown, and the backlash that he's getting is 100% warranted. I don't think he should be kicked off of platforms. There's this whole argument now that some people have, like, we're like, so if, for those of you that don't know, when it comes to free speech, right, the amount of protection you have depends on the setting. So like in a school, you don't have the same level of free speech protection as you do in the public square. That is like, if you look at like old case history, the public square is kind of like, you know, the spot for the marketplace of ideas back when people didn't have the internet. Everyone would, you know, gather around, they'd have their rallies, they'd blah, blah, blah. People would be sharing their ideas and people would come to the public square, any place where a bunch of people are gathering in order to hear everybody out. There is an argument, even though Twitter is a private company, that the government should step in and declare it like, you know, basically like a public square. And the argument is, well, now nobody's going to the town square to hear people's ideas. People are going to Twitter. So Twitter having the ability to just knock out or ban or delete information that they don't like, and them not facilitating a true marketplace of ideas, they're arguing is an infringement upon free speech, even though Twitter is a private company and technically they should have if I create a website, I can just delete whichever comment I want, right? The argument is that Twitter has become so big that it should be declared basically the new public square, which would grant it the greatest level of free speech protection, which would only have, you know, very, very narrow limitations on what you can't say. Just interesting to think about. I don't know how I feel about that, but not discussion for another day. If you guys want me to, I could do actually an episode next week on free speech, and what the actual protections you have are and what the exceptions are. The Salem witch trials are a point in history to the position of women today. Women are witches conspiring to evil. I love you. Love you too. Okay. I think I'm gonna call it a show. Yep, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll be back next week. You guys can send me a DM on OnlyFans, Snapchat, Instagram, email, if that's your thing, on feedback or topics you want me to discuss next week or any week after that, or just even YouTube videos that you are interested in. Also, if something I said, you're like, hey, where can you point to the source of this or that, or who was the person you were talking about here, what interview, what podcast, always let me know that too, so I can tell you if you're interested. All right. Have a good rest of your Monday. Bye.